Hey guys, welcome to Kniss Live. This is episode 2, and hopefully this will work today because you are now in my office. Last week we tried to do it here and didn't work out so well. The Wi-Fi wasn't so hot, so we'll see what happens today. But you can see I'm here with my books, and welcome to my office. I'm going to back up this camera so it doesn't look like I'm not wearing a shirt. That's a little weird. So the intention of this show is to answer your questions. If you have questions, if you want free coaching, we only go for half an hour, so if you do have questions, I would love to see them below. I have a couple questions that came in on my website over the last week. If you want to do that throughout the week, it is available to you at mindiekniss.com/ask, A-S-K, or you can just do hashtag #AskMindie. And wherever on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, we can find it and get your questions answered. So one of the questions that did come in this week is, what is your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur and what is your least favorite thing about being an entrepreneur? And I was thinking about that question because there's a lot of great things about being an entrepreneur. And really it comes down to the same thing though. My favorite and my least favorite thing is the amount of things that you have to learn and know how to do to run your own business. Because when you are an entrepreneur, you essentially have to learn all the different things and do all the different things, at least at first when you're getting started, until you can begin to delegate and hire other people to do them for you. So that's great in that I love learning, but that's also a lot of stuff to take on. My story is that, and some of you know this, my story is I came out of a Fortune 100 company and had been there for about 7 years, so really big business, and then decided to become an entrepreneur and realized fairly quickly that I didn't know what I was doing. So my issue, and I would recommend that you guys, if you're starting businesses, try and avoid this, is to be really clear that you need to ask for help, that you need to get support, that you need to look at all the different ways that you can reach out to people and utilize the resources and the people that you already do have. It's not necessarily about needing other things, but just about really leveraging the reach that you currently have within, based on whatever you want to do. So that was awesome. That was my story. And so it comes down to just really being open to learning and growing and experiencing. One of the other things that is, I would say, fun and not so fun about the entrepreneurial game is that it can be very inconsistent, especially coming from a corporate job where you get a paycheck, every week or every other week, and you kind of know that as long as you're doing well, the company's doing well, and that everybody's good, that you'll be getting a certain amount in your paycheck or in your bank account, say, every 2 weeks. Now, it's really different when you're working for yourself because you are fully in control, which that's one of those things that is awesome and sometimes not so awesome, because you get to call the shots, you get to make all the decisions, which is fun and exciting. But you also have to be courageous and make it happen. So if you don't make it happen, you don't get your bills paid, which sucks. So there's that. Another question I got was, how do I decide what type of business to start? Now, again, lots of different questions, but that one's key because so many people are saying, I'd love to start something, but where do I begin? There's a couple different ways to look at that. One is, what does the market need? What is a need? What is a desire that they want? That is the people in your world, in your sphere. And what do you want to do? You are so capable of a variety of different things, so in some ways we do have to be selective and choose what it is that sounds good to you. Hey, Alice. And so that's super fun. And it can be a little overwhelming, like all these different things out there to do, which one is it going to be for me? Now the exciting thing is that since most of us have, anywhere from, say, around 80, 90 years on this planet, there's a lot of time, so you can try a lot of different things and see what happens, but go for something, figure it out, make it happen. Let's rock. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for your questions. Cynthia, hello. Hello, Alice. Dante says, what did you want to become when you were a child? The first thing that I can remember being the biggest dream for me as a kid was to become a writer. I grew up reading books and just spending a lot of time in libraries and bookstores. I would spend all my allowance money on books. And I was a super book nerd. I was always reading. And that was the first thing that I wanted to do, was to become a writer. Now, I also wanted to be president of the United States, which now that's like the last job that I would ever, ever, ever want to have. But I remember telling my aunt when we were hanging out at the beach one year that I wanted to be president, the first female president. She was like, oh, that's amazing. And now I wouldn't sign up for that. I also wanted to be an astronaut, which isn't ever going to happen. I think there's a height restriction, or not restriction, but you have to be a certain height, and I'm not. I'm less than 5 feet tall, so that's not going to happen for me. Maybe if I get on to hang out with Richard Branson and Peter Diamandis a bit more, we can go in their consumer spacecraft, which would be pretty awesome, but we'll see. So writer is the question. All right. Hey Johnston, hey Josh. Amanda says, do you guys plan on having any kids soon? Nope. That's not to say that we will not have kids, but not soon for sure. Sean and I both have businesses, as you guys know, and in some ways our business is like our baby, and we also have so many clients that those are kind of like our kids. We make sure that they're good, we take care of them, and in some ways it's like raising children. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's obviously much easier than raising kids. But we've got a niece and a nephew, and we love spending time with them. So that's awesome for now. Let's see what else. How old are you? I'm 37. Just had my birthday this month, October 2nd, so I'm 37 years old. How did Sean and I meet? We've talked about that many times, so I'm not going to go into the full story, but Amanda, thank you for asking. We met on Facebook. That's the short story. Sean was a friend suggestion to me probably back in 2007 or 2008. I had a book that had just come out, and one of my friends was connecting me with people that there might be some synergy with what they were doing and what I was doing, and that was the beginning of it all. Brent says, whoa, I have some of those books in the background. Looks like I'm on the right track. Awesome. That's great. I'm a big book fan. So I actually, when I was in college, I worked at Barnes & Noble while I was in school, and literally probably spent every cent that they paid me. I just bought more books. So when I was done with college, I was in college for 4 years, my undergrad, I had just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, and over the years, moving lots of places, and I have decreased the amount of books. But so right now I have two big full shelves. I don't know how many there are on there, but lots. Let me scroll back up. Let's see. Tanya. Yeah, you hear me? Hello to Maine. The president thing, no thanks. Jason says, how long have you been married? We celebrated our 3rd anniversary in September, which was a lot of fun. Alex says, are you proud of how far your business has come? It's a great question. I think that, in the entrepreneur's mind, there's always the ideal, which is far ahead of where you are now. But one of the programs that I'm in, it's called Strategic Coach, and it's a coaching program for entrepreneurs and people who run businesses. One of the things we talk about all the time in Strategic Coach is that you will never get to that ideal space. It's always out in your future. And that's okay, because it's something to strive for, and goals that you want to achieve, and yet you're going to be miserable if you always are just focused on that. Like, I haven't gotten there yet. Ugh. So they talk a lot about really being in gratitude and loving where you are right now, which is really cool. So I try to have a balance of both. I would say that yes, I am proud of where it has gotten to. I mean, there was a time where I was living in my office in Portland, Oregon, and didn't really have enough money for food, so that sucked. And to come from that to the ability to make as much money as I can make now, it's night and day different. So that, yes, I'm very proud of that. And yet there's always still that next level or the next thing or the next goal. So it's a good mixture of both. That's a great question, Alex. Thank you for that. Sean is so awesome, Kyle says. Yes, that's why I married him. Hey, Alice. Author, may I ask, I'm new, but what business are you in? Yeah, Arthur, that's a great question. I'm in the coaching business, so I run a coaching practice where I meet one-on-one with awesome individuals who just want to rock their life, live their dream, figure out how to do that without all the insecurities and frustrations and fears that often hold us back. We often get stuck in that kind of an obstacle game, and having a coach is a really cool way to have someone else who's not in your position, who doesn't have the same fears and insecurities as you, just say, hey, let's figure this out. Let's pave a way through that obstacle or around it or underneath it or however way we need to make that happen so that you can get to your goals. One of the things that I love to do with my clients is to also bring in the spiritual component, the soul component, and really look at what's going on in your life and why and what that could all be meaning. Soul contract is a huge thing that I talk about a lot. And, it's like, what are you here to do? What is your purpose here? What is your mission? And that's really, really fun for me. The other side of my business is I have a coach training academy. So people who want to become coaches or learn how to start a coaching practice come through that 3-month program. And that's also really fun. That's kind of like raising up the new generation of coaches. And what's cool too is that sometimes I either won't have time to work with a new client, or maybe for whatever reason it's not a great fit, or maybe they can't afford what I charge. And so I can say, hey, these are all these coaches that I personally have trained and personally worked one-on-one with, so I can vouch for their experience and how they coach, and maybe it would be a better fit with them. So I love that about the Coach Academy. So that's fun. Amanda says, you definitely don't look like you turned 37. I get that a lot. Sean and I were just at a conference this week, the Genius Network annual event, earlier on Monday and Tuesday this week, and this guy that worked at Bulletproof Coffee, if you guys are familiar with that, he was talking to me and going on about something, and then he's like, yeah, I'm sure you're much younger than me, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, and I'm thinking, I know that I'm older than this guy. Excuse me. And I say, well, how old are you? He says, well, I'm 31. I'm like, well, I have you beat by 6 years, so... Michael says, where do you see yourself in 10 years? That's awesome. I see myself leading trips to Africa. One of the things that potentially might start in 2016, and if not 2016, soon after that, is I really want to bring groups of entrepreneurs over to Africa to do work projects, because it's one thing to write a check, and I know a lot of very, very charitable, very generous, very successful entrepreneurs, and yet it changes you when you can go there and meet the people that you're helping and to be in community with them. It's not just like, hey, I'm writing a check from my convenient, comfortable space in the U.S., but to go to some of these developing nations. I've spent a lot of time in Kenya and Uganda. I used to live there for a while, and that's a huge, huge, huge piece of my heart. So I want to bring other people there and have them experience something similar. So I know I'll be doing that in 10 years. Alice says, you agree with Amanda? Yes, I know. I look very young. And here's the thing, is that everybody says, oh, you'll appreciate that when you're older. Like, maybe, maybe, I don't know. It's right now I always feel like people think that I'm so young, so they don't necessarily, at least at first blush, if I start talking to them, that's a different story. But if they're just meeting me and they think that I'm mid 20s or whatever they think. I met a girl from Brazil this week that said that looked like 18. I'm like, come on, give me a little more credit than that. But yeah, it can be a good thing. It could be a not so good thing. So let's see what else. Tanya, how are you going to celebrate Halloween? Well, my father is in town. He lives in Chicago and he's visiting Arizona this week. And because of his travel schedule and my travel schedule, Halloween evening is essentially the only time that we had that we could connect. So I'm going to celebrate Halloween by having dinner with my father, which will be awesome. Silvana says, I love how focused you and Sean are in obtaining your goals and aspirations. What kind of advice can you give to someone to obtain that level of focus? I laugh because we don't think that we're very focused at all, quite, and that's completely being honest. We look at some of our friends and our colleagues as way more focused, and we have a hard time maintaining that focus. Like I said, completely honestly here. Here's what does help though. If you get past the idea that it's about you. I do talk a lot about, what am I here to do in sense of all of us? What are we here to do? But really it's who is it that needs our help? And if you can maintain at least a little bit of focus, it's not always so easy in today's society where everything's, crazy and busy and fast and loud and noisy. But if it's, okay, if I can just serve one person today, and as you grow your business, as you grow your influence, oftentimes that one person turns into maybe tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of people. And what is it that you're doing on their behalf? That to me is a very big driver and reason to stick with it, to stay doing what I'm doing, because I know that there's someone out there that might be able to get some even glimpse of inspiration from something that I'm doing. Well, that makes it worth it to stay focused and to keep doing it. So it is a challenge. I'm right there with you, but think about who can you serve? Who can you impact? What is it out there? Some need in the world that you want to do something about. I think that's a really good way to do that. Let's see what else. Okay. What's up, Ebony? Hey, Mindie. I've just set up my own business at 22. That's awesome. Good for you. I suffer from social anxiety. What are some good exercises to practice self-love and speaking confidently and making conversation? Yeah, that's great. I think there's a couple different things with anxiety. And one, I spoke about this yesterday on Sean's live show. If some of you guys were viewing that, I was talking about how if we stay in present moment, there cannot be anxiety, because anxiety and depression, they're just on the same spectrum. So depression is thinking about the past and feeling it right now in the present moment. And anxiety is essentially thinking about the future and feeling that right now in the present. So there is that sense of, if you can get present, get grounded and get centered, that's going to help. The other thing is to get a coach, like get someone that, maybe it's not even somebody that you pay, but somebody that you can work on that with, that can speak directly to you, because there's always going to be specifics for each person, or certain situations that are going to trigger one person and not another person. But I would say work on it. The world is waiting for you to speak and to present what you have to offer. Part of it's just practice. I don't know if you have, Ebony, if you have any like public presentations in terms of what you're doing with your business, but I would say just keep going, keep practicing. I think that it does get easier. I've heard some people say that it doesn't, and I'm not sure what they're doing or not doing that makes that the case for them. For me, the first time I did a big presentation, and what I mean by that is there's probably 300 people in the room. The first time I did it, it didn't go so well. I was very nervous. I was really, really in my head, and thinking, what's the next thing I have to say? And really, if you just get up and talk about what comes from your heart, it's so much easier. So there's that, and keep practicing, keep going, because the world's waiting for you. Hi, Effie. Let's see. Carrie says, how can I become a better public speaker? Well, I would say that your best bet would be to work with my husband, Sean Stevenson. He runs a program called 10K Speeches, where he teaches people both how to become a great speaker and really put together an awesome, powerful talk, but also how to make good money from that experience. So that would be my best bet. I work with speakers in the sense of the mental training, but in terms of an actual public presentation, he's the pro. He's been doing it for 21 years. So that's how you can do that. Let's see. Ozzy says, when I meet a girl for the first time, but I get all shy talking, what do I have to do? Well, one, you're in your head. If you're thinking, well, what should I say next? Or how is she going to respond to me? Don't worry how she's going to respond to you. Be you. I've worked with a lot of young-ish guys, I would say, guys in their 20s. And one of the things that has been frustrating for me is some of these guys have come out of what is known as the pickup world, where they teach techniques to attract women, to, develop intimacy with women. And part of that is great, because if you're really starting from scratch and you don't even know the first thing to say to a woman, that can be helpful to give you some tips. But I find that the struggle in that is then they're just running techniques. Then it's like, okay, well, if she says this, then I do that. And it's all this logistical game, which that's not how you build relationships. You build relationships heart connecting. So being yourself is the best advice I can give. Some people are like, well, how do I do that? Go with what feels a little bit better. If it feels a little bit scary, go for the challenge. Stretch yourself and go say hello to that person. And then just allow yourself to be you. There's people that are actually, this is shocking to some of the guys that I've worked with, but there are actually people, women, who are attracted to guys who are not the most suave, confident person on the planet. Sometimes people like that, make other women roll their eyes. So it's like, be you, and you will then attract the right type of person that's going to be a great connection for you specifically. So I hope that helps. There's obviously a lot more to say about that. Allison says, both Sean and yourself have to lead pretty busy lives, but both of you seem to stay so happy and keep a strong relationship. Do you have any advice on how to keep your relationship flowing smoothly? Let's see more. When both partners have so much going on. Absolutely. I will tell you our topmost strategy for that is our highest priority. I don't know if you guys have heard Greg McEwen speak. He's the author of the book Essentialism. And I would show it to you right now, but it's actually holding up my microphone. I always have to pile books to make this high enough. One of the things, he just spoke at Genius Network this week, and one of the things that he was talking about is that the word priority used to always be a singular word. There wasn't priorities, it was one. What is the single top most important thing to do? In more recent times, though, we have stretched out that word to become a plural and say, oh, what are our priorities? So you can have, 20 different priorities. Anyway, just a side note, but advice on leading busy lives and maintaining an awesome partnership is our top priority is to be on the same page with each other. So that means that if something's going on in one of our businesses, if something's going on with one of our friends or our family or whatever else happens, because, there's always stuff happening, our top priority is to get back on the same page with each other if we have diverged from that. So we will literally, we've had conversations right before we've gone on stage to clear some stuff. We've had conversations when one of us was doing a big launch and, something had to get out or an email had to get written. And we're like, no, that's not as important as us being on the same page. And thankfully, we both have done a ton of work on ourselves and have a lot of tools. So when we come to that point of like, hey, let's get back on the same page, we are fairly quick about, we can do that fairly quickly. So that helps. That just comes from self-knowledge, dropping the ego and being like, hey, I get it that this is more important than all this other stuff that's going on. So that's one of the things, is just making that a priority to be on the same page. Okay, let's see. Chris, best friend hurt me deeply when stealing money from me. How do I move forward from this? Okay, so that's a great example of what I was talking about earlier with something that is called soul contracts. That person, that friend, especially if they're your best friend or they were your best friend, I don't know what the current situation is, but as a best friend, that person is in your life for a very, very powerful and strong reason. Now, sometimes when somebody is in our life like that, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be a spouse or a friend, doesn't matter, but those people that we have grabbed onto and taken as a close person in our life, they also can teach us and help us to grow in some ways that are not so pleasant, like stealing or like hurting you in some way. The deal is, and this is always a stretch for some people, so if this doesn't feel good to you, throw it out. But this is what I've taken on, so I can tell you from my own experience, is that when people have hurt me in my life, I can look at it in one of two ways. I can be like, well, they're a complete ass, and I hate them, and I'm going to hold this grudge and be really pissed off about it. As you probably know, where I'm going with this is that only hurts me. Holding on to anger, frustration, rage, all that hurts me. That's a negative to me in my life. Or even holding on to, sadness or victimhood, like, oh, they hurt me. Well, while that may be, quote, true, it doesn't serve you to hold on to that. So that's the first thing, is being able to let go of the story around what happened. And then forgiveness, because ultimately all the things in life happen for you, not to you. So people might say, well, okay, so if my friend stole from me, how is that for me? That sucked. Like, that was not a pleasant situation. It hurt. It was painful. And maybe I'm out of money or out of something that they stole. Like, that's not a good situation. And yet, there is growth in that for you. There is development in that for you. There is a stretch in that for you to come from the place of like, I'm really freaking pissed off, to, oh, maybe I can forgive my friend. Like, that's growth right there. And that's always good. That's always for your development. There's a really, really powerful story. I won't get into it now because we only have a few minutes left, but I tell this story every year at Heart Path about this guy who's having this vision, this meditation of all these people in his life. And his guide asks him, or asks the crowd of people that is assembled before him, who is it that is willing to take on the struggle and the pain of helping this man grow? And he sees someone raise their hand in the way, way, way back of the audience. And as the crowd begins to part, he realizes it's his ex-wife, who he had just this traumatic, crazy breakup and terrible situation with their son's custody and all this stuff. But he's like, oh my gosh, she had to go through all this pain and suffering on my behalf. So I get it that that's way out there and might be more than you guys want to take on for the people in your life. But like I said, that's my approach to it. That's definitely how I've seen things. And it brings me a lot of peace so that I can move forward and get on with what I am here to do in life. And so, yeah. Okay, let's see what else. Hey, guys. What's up, Cameron? Allison, you're welcome. Alice, love and support. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Alice says, you have to forgive, but you will never forget. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I was speaking with somebody, I was interviewing someone the other day, and I asked her about some painful situations, and she's like, really? I don't even remember, because I have chosen to focus on all the good. So, you can remember if you want. If not, you still have the growth, you still have the experience, you still have the lesson. So we have come to the 30-minute mark. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys so much. It's awesome to be able to connect with you in this space like this, where you get to come into my home, my office, and hang out with me for a little bit every week. I totally appreciate it, and I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. If you have a specific question that you want answered next week, you can either join me live next week when we do this again, or you can check out mindiekniss.com/ask, ASK, or you can just do Ask Mindie with a hashtag on any social media. Mindie is MINDIE, so hashtag Ask Mindie, MINDIE, and I look forward to answering all of your questions again. Thanks, guys. Love you.